Welcome back, everybody. It's Tobin's Fight Show here on 790 The Ticket. Thank you for continuing on with us here. So, a lot of boxing to get to. I started out my week very, very bummed out. Very bummed out because it's been a cursed year. It's been a cursed year from boxing, especially this summer. Now, most of this has been due to COVID. This has been a time where things have been ramping up with the COVID. It took out Teofimo Lopez versus George Cambosis, which we do have an update on. Thankfully, that's kind of been our baby. But it was supposed to be down here in Miami. I was in the press room. I had just gotten done hearing from the real Tarzan as he was getting ready to fight Vitor Belfort. Vitor is now fighting Oscar De La Hoya, and their PR guy walks in and says, "Fight's off." Great. That was June. July. July ended up being Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, which we weren't even supposed to get this year. We were supposed to get Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, but legality stepped in, took that fight away, and then we were fighting Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. So a fight that we didn't even want in the first place, but okay, we'll take it. It's a good rivalry, and we'll see what Deontay Wilder does with a new trainer. Gone. So that's two big fights, and really in a ways, three big fights that we've lost. Then we get news this week. Next week, I was hyped. I was hyped for this fight more than any fight. More than Teofimo versus George Cambosis, even though, I like George a lot and that was in our backyard. Even Tyson Fury and the heavyweight championship, even if that's the most buzzworthy championship there was. And in a lot of ways, September got taken away too because Canelo versus Caleb Plant, that was going to be a fight, and then it wasn't. So September looked like it was going to be shot in the leg as far as boxing was concerned. We have an update with that too. But the fight I was looking forward to the most, bar none, was Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. Manny's one of my favorite fighters of all time. Probably top three. Probably top three for me all time. And I love watching him fight. And I have a lot of respect for Errol Spence, especially more so when I went and saw his win over Mikey Garcia. I was ringside for that and won it in a way I didn't think he was going to win it, and just showed me a lot. So the fact that Manny Pacquiao at his age is legitimately, like, he's doing what everybody wants Floyd to do. He's doing the thing everybody wants the legends to do, which is go fight the guys in their prime, give them the rub. And that's what he's doing. But you can never really count him out, especially with him knocking down Keith Thurman, but especially the fact that he gets 10-8 rounds. Like, you could talk about, he hasn't knocked a guy out and that he doesn't have the knockout dead power that he used to have. But everybody always gets surprised by that left hand down the pipe, springing off those monstrous calves. Nobody ever seems to see it coming, and they end up on their ass. And that's a big way to win a lot of scorecards, dude. It is. I don't. You could say whatever you want about the legend. And I feel like he's, most people are just happy that he's coming back and doing a fight like he was supposed to do. But we get word this week, Errol Spence has an injury. He injured his eye, and we are not going to get that he has a retinal tear, and we are not going to get Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. And I tell you, I bleep you not when I say I was nearly moved to tears by this, because it's just I'm just wondering. I'm just in a weird place. I love doing this show, and I think, as you heard in the previous segment, like, I can get into whatever. The PFL, I was having the time of my life watching it, and things can flip on a dime in this sport, and they can get right back. But I've been a little bit depressed with what we got on the horizon, with the big fights. There's some good fights, don't get me wrong. UFC's got a good pay-per-view coming up at the end of September, but I'm talking about the monsters, the monsters that everyone's talking about. And really right now in sports, in both of them, there's not really one I could say to my friend, I could really go and say to just Johnny sports fan, hey, this is the fight you got to see. Errol Spence versus Manny was one of those fights you could say that about. Tyson Fury, the heavyweight championship, you could always say that. I don't know if Teofimo's quite at that level yet. Canelo, Caleb Plant, I don't even know if that's even at its level, even though he's doing an undisputed championship. think we all know as fight fans we're going to love that. But just, your broski who happens to love, just the Dolphins or the Heat, will they tune in for it? I don't know. So it was a little bit depressing that this happened this week. Now, Manny, to his credit, is still going to fight. He is going to fight Yordanis Ugas for essentially the WBA championship for the welterweight division, bar none. Whatever version Manny has, whatever version Ugas has, this is going to be the version for now. Well, the WBA decides, whatever the hell they want, because they're willy-nilly with everything. But essentially, this will cinch up the belt for that. And then supposedly, maybe, if Manny gets through this, I would suppose, the winner's going to go fight Errol Spence, I guess, again. So, look, he's not taking on a guy as good in Ugas. He's taking on a decent fighter, but he is taking on a completely different fighter. But so is Ugas. Listen, Ugas is going in there and he's taking on the great Manny Pacquiao and is kind of just thrown to the wolves. Now, listen, we've seen this work out for guys. Andy Ruiz comes to mind where, he goes in there and he is, nobody thinks he has a shot in hell to beat Anthony Joshua. I'd say the difference with this, though, is, Manny's already been there, done that, seen everything when it comes to the fight game. I mean, he's knocked out people he wasn't supposed to knock out. He has been on the biggest of stages against Floyd Mayweather and flopped. He has been knocked out cold. He has won championships in 8 divisions. I mean, the idea that a switch like this is really going to shake him, I would be surprised by mentally. I would, and even skill set wise, I think that if it's a case of, okay, he genuinely does look over the hill, and he's taking on a guy a little bit older now. It's the age gap is closed a little bit with taking on Ugas, who I think is listed at 35 actually, just turned 35, and so that steps him up a little bit older than Errol Spence was, and then Manny, he's right now minus 300. Starting off this going into it, I would say it's a bit of a less dangerous fight. I think that he's not concerned as much with the hammers that Ugas could bring or something like that. I think that he doesn't have that much danger, but the skill set that a lot of these guys come from in Cuba. I mean, just the precision that they can go about things. Especially the aggression, could he use it against Manny and stuff like that? I think there could be some ugliness in that. But I think if we're going to say objectively, is he taking on a better opponent? No, he's not. So I like Manny's chances still to win this. I'm just bummed out that it's not against Errol Spence. And, if he doesn't look good and he doesn't feel the same way, there's always a chance that Manny's like, even if he gets an ugly win, it's just like, man, do I really want to go now fight Errol Spence and I don't look like I did against Keith Thurman? So there's that risk too. Like it's a huge bummer that we don't get the Manny Errol Spence. It was right there. It's right on the goal line, and the fact that it's it's like a false start penalty. I don't know what football analogy you want to put to it, but this is not the fight that we signed up for. Still, we'll tune in to watch Manny whenever. Doesn't matter. I've watched him in Australia at 7 a.m. I don't miss a Manny Pacquiao fight. And going to see him live was one of the most thrilling sporting events I've ever gotten to go to. But still, this is not him taking on, pretty much the bona fide welterweight champion of the world outside of Terrence Crawford. I mean, if Manny were to win this fight, it would be him and Terrence. And that's crazy at his age to think something like that. And for Errol, it would have been, I think it would have cinched him up for a lot of people as far as being a babyface star. He's done decent numbers, but this is probably, Manny Pacquiao, a fight week with Manny Pacquiao, taking Errol Spence on, who can do all the interviews and things like that. If it doesn't do a million, I think it would have done near damn close to it. And I don't know what this does, maybe close to it, but I don't think Ugas is really going to be that press face that you're going to have all week. Because we're not going to be talking about what this can do for his legacy and his standing. Even though it can do a lot, it's just a new face essentially at the top that you're throwing into the mix. A lot like Andrew Ruiz was. It was just like it was always Deontay, Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua, and then all of a sudden this Andrew Ruiz fella comes out of nowhere. And even though everybody respected what Andy could do in the sport, nobody really thought he was going to do what he was going to do. And then all of a sudden, okay, now he has to be in the mix. So, huge bummer that we don't get the fight, though, man. I was down in the dumps about this. Now, a couple of news and notes we should get to. I mentioned George Cambosis and Teofimo Lopez. Now, a couple of things happened with this in the last time. And shout out to Mike Coppinger, who's breaking a lot of these boxing stories for ESPN. Teofimo Lopez versus George Ferocious Kambosos. It appears now that is going to be in October, and that they're targeting it for the Middle East, according to ESPN. That is what co-founder Ryan Kavanaugh told ESPN on Saturday. He says, we're currently working with regulatory bodies to bring the fight to Saudi Arabia. We think it's the perfect place for such a landmark fight. They were trying to move it to Australia, but the IBF ended up ruling against that. And basically that had to do with Australia's 14-day quarantine. And I got to tell you, Australia's getting a little bit nutty with the coronavirus too. So who even knows if you would have reaped the benefits of being able to do that fight like you had hoped you could do that fight. So it appears like this is one that's a little bit more in line. They're really trying to make up the money because apparently the reports are they lost up to or maybe more than $5 million for the fight getting canceled down here, getting canceled the week of. So it's apparently he feels great and that he's been training according to the report. So hopefully he looks good because I know he's talked about asthma in the past and things like that. So you always worry about how our guy's going to bounce back. And I think that's still got to be something that you keep in your mind going into this. And, that's where we're at, man. That's where we're at with this Undisputed Lightweight Championship. The other fight that we got to keep an eye on is Canelo Alvarez, where he is apparently now going towards a deal for Caleb Plant for November. And again, from Mike Coppinger, says that Canelo and Caleb are nearing a deal for a November fight. Alvarez and Plant was agreed to last month for September 18th. And they were waiting signatures. And then at the last minute, the talks collapsed. There was some weird stuff where like Canelo was asking for a guarantee even if Caleb Plant couldn't fight. Obviously, in a time like this where like fights are dropping like flies willy-nilly, they weren't able to do that. So, it was it really was disappointing that fight wasn't able to happen. And it really is kind of disappointing that we're literally talking about a week apart and they're still not doing the fight in September. I know that these things can get thrown off and guys have to go into camp and all that type of stuff, but it's just very strange. Now, I do still think this can be beneficial for the fight because it's going to be a Fox pay-per-view. I think that having Caleb Plant do the NFL Fox pregame shows, Canelo Alvarez, same thing, especially the way he's been spitting in these press conferences in English now with some of the hilarious memes that you're hearing with, or he's talking trash. I mean, if you could roll one of these, I think that would go a whole hell of a long way. But, especially, let's talk, there's a Titans game. Caleb Plant is a Titans fan. Maybe a game that's on Fox, if there's one of those AFC games where there's a switch up and he ends up doing some promotion on that, or you have him there for the coin toss. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I do think that time-wise, maybe, I do think it can add a little drama to it with the broken negotiations. It can fuel it up a little bit. So I don't think it's all bad that the fight does get pushed back. It's just weird that it was. Like, what wasn't good 2 weeks ago that is good now that you have to delay the fight 6 weeks? It almost makes you think, was there some kind of business tactic or was this just a business tactic, or were there some boxing ramifications? I know Canelo already had COVID before the Yildirim fight, so not that he can't get it again, but less likely that he would be dealing with something severe. But was there an injury? Was there a shape thing? Something where they felt like they needed to just push it back about 8 weeks or so. I don't know, but it seems now like we're going to get it. I'm glad that's going to happen. I love this fight so much more than taking on a guy like Dimitri Bivol. We've been talking about, you don't want to be Canelo Alvarez and you've been having this goal of being undisputed, and then all of a sudden, just gone, just like that. That would suck. So I'm glad we're going to come to some agreement there, and that fight's going to happen.